Good morning, colleagues. Let us begin our session. Organizers, question to organizers, would you please present us? And shall we begin the introduction? Okay, as a matter of fact, I am moderator, so I will introduce everyone. And I am the first speaker. Please share the first presentation, Kondratiev. Oh, it is called NADO. The topic of our session today is the smart demolition as a tool for implementing the concept of the circular economy in achieving sustainable development goals of the UN. This is indeed a topic which is quite useful for the international agenda. Why we're talking here? And by the way, how should I operate the clicker? Just a moment. Okay, it works now. Well, in my presentation today, I'm going to talk about the subject of the circular economy in construction, about the sustainable development goals of the UN, and what is the economy, circular economy of the or closed loop economy. Why the demolition is very important for this. Why we're talking about this, and why we are talking about the circular economy and the construction. So why the builders who dismantle the buildings are talking about it, and the international cooperation Russia Islamic world. Those who are going to see us online and those who are watching this from the hall. So general viewer will not understand probably why we're talking about the sustainable development goals and the construction and demolition. As a matter of fact, the development of the international development, we see the international problem of the world for the humanity to survive. And inevitably, we see the growth of the costs for the raw materials. And on the other hand, we have to develop the concept of the sustainable development. It was adopted in 1992 at the so-called Earth Summit in the United Nations. In the year 2000, at the meeting of the participants of the UN, first there were formulated the 8 goals, and then in 2015, finally the 17 goals, sustainable development goals, were presented. And Islamic countries as well stick to these goals, same as the Russian Federation. What is interesting, according to the report of the global risks of the International Economic Forum in Davos, 6 of the 10 global risks are painted in green because they have to do with the environment. And the geopolitical risk is just one. So probably this balance is not correct. Of course, at present, the environmental risks are important, but nevertheless, geopolitical problems are also very sharp. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Mr. Lavrov, said at one of the meetings, the developing countries decided to pass to the carbon neutrality, and they were supposed to invest 100 billion every year, but the developed countries actually invested just some dozens of billions of dollars. At the same time, the military conflicts and the costs of these conflicts are much higher than the environmental agenda. So this is why I mentioned this, because this balance is not observed quite often. Now, a few words about the circular economy. The task is to achieve at least 7 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The circular economy is based on the reduction of harmful impacts and reduction of the waste. And we see here on the slide the goals of the circular economy. This is the investment into the responsible consumption and production, industrialization, innovation and infrastructure, and as a result we see new technologies, new businesses, new jobs and improved environmental conditions. Why we're talking about the circular economy in the construction, and in particular in the demolition? Why? Because the demolition processes generate a lot of waste. We have even more waste of the demolition than the solid communal waste. But in Russia, those who work with the waste understand that these volumes are more or less the same, demolition waste and the solid communal waste. So we see here the construction and demolition waste and the solid municipal waste. So if we analyze the situation in the biggest developed countries, we see that the volumes of the demolition waste is at least 2 times higher than the solid municipal waste. So why we are talking about the circular economy, and what and represent the Russian National Association of the Demolition Institutions. This is a non-commercial association, non-commercial organization of the operators of demolition and the cleaning. For rank and file citizen, what is the demolition? Why we include this in the agenda? Well, you can see here 11 different activities of demolition, and as a matter of fact only 3 are not directly related to the demolition. This is the waste reclamation, cleanup and waste treatment utilization. And now let's see the structure within the demolition waste. What are the dismantling and demolition waste? In the United States, for example, the demolition waste is about 500 million tons. And here we see, for example, the degree of the problem elaboration in the world. We see here that the dismantling of the road coverage and concrete, these are the waste of the demolition of the buildings, and of the total volume of the total volume of the demolition waste in the United States. This is the concrete of the destroyed buildings. Now let's look at the following charts. We see here that the construction waste is, for example, in Germany, is just 14,000 tons, million tons, and the demolition is 60 million tons. So we can see that in Russia, the demolition waste is in a gray zone, and we simply do not know the exact statistics. Now let's talk about the degree of the problem. Taking into account the experience of the Western countries and some developed countries, we can say that the demolition of the buildings and the generation of big volume of waste, this is quite relevant for the whole world. And the stakeholders are the designers, the manufacturers of the special equipment, the construction companies, and the manufacturers of the equipment for recycling. We see that this is sustainable construction and demolition of waste management is an example of very important initiative in India. As we see here, this is a training manual, and what is important in no country, the demolition waste are not called the construction waste. And in the right upper hand corner, we see the roadmap of zero avoidable waste in construction. And now we can recall the Federal Law 8/9, and we are now trying to modify our regulations related to this. In order to modify the regulations in Russia, we have several working groups, and just February this year, the Ministry of Construction took a special initiative and took the decisions to solve these problems. In this working group, the head of this work is the first Deputy Minister of Construction and Municipal Activities, is Mr. Lomakin, and co-chair of this working group is the NATO Association represented by me. Why we are talking about this? In order to try and to create a systemic approach, we need the cooperation between business and the government. The government regulator develops the regulations, but they have to communicate with business in order not to spoil the situation, because sometimes business perceive the regulations and as not effective, very costly, inefficient. And for this, it is necessary to establish relation between business and government, and an important tool for this are non-commercial organizations. In our country, this is the NATO Association, and in Europe, for example, there are for many years already exists the Association of the Demolition Organizations in different countries, Spain, Germany, Italy, Greece, etc. They set up the norms and regulations for these activities and implement the important tasks. There are international summits and sessions, and there are international platforms for partnership between the organizations of demolition and dismantling, and this is aimed at achieving the interests of the community and the whole state, and in order to have the efficient cooperation. I myself witnessed these examples. If you look, for example, at this slide, and the left upper corner, you see the photo of the Russian Demolition Forum 2020 in Moscow, and at that moment we had visitors and guests from the demolition and dismantle organizations from Serbia, Britain, Germany, etc. On the right hand, you see the German Demolition Conference, then World Demolition Summit 2018 in Dublin, Ireland, And below you see the World Demolition Summit 2019 in Chicago, USA, and then German Demolition Conference 2023 in Berlin. For example, in the center of a photo shows the president of the European Dismantling Association, and below on the left side we see the members and the presidents of the American demolition organizations.
In 2020, there was a European forum on demolition and withdrawal of especially hazardous substances. So I want to show you that communication is very strong in the developed countries. So all the legal initiatives, well, before them there is a monitoring and a research. And why does it happen in such a way in Europe? Let's go to the previous position. There is there should be in Europe, there is a very good cooperation between the government and business. In Russia, there are organizations that are dealing with waste. But you see the gray color, these are Islamic countries. They don't have such associations, but they do have business which is dealing with these matters. But when their goal is to survive, they are not dealing with development, they are not dealing with ecology, with labor safety and dismantling, because these are especially dangerous works. Why do we talk about it within the forum of Islamic cooperation? Because when our association was working and was researching these matters, well, this agenda finds its response on the highest level. And on the slide, you can see the programs or the regulators which exist in different countries of Islamic world. And there are organizations, subcontractors that fulfill these works. I think that today we can think about establishment of a platform for international cooperation for demolition, dismantling and waste management within BRICS, SHOS and OIS. And the reasons why I think so, I will sum up of my presentation. This topic finds its reflection not only in developed countries but all over the world, and members of OIS, they are not integrated in the international community as far as the international agenda is concerned. And you can see the composition of our participants. They are not integrated in this system. Russia, represented by a profile Ministry of Construction, and our association, we have experience in working in the circular economy. Members of our association, members of NADA, they have significant experience, experienced employees to fulfill challenging tasks in the matters of the demolition and waste management. And fourth, our association, when we had the possibility to communicate more closely with European community, we acquired the information and we know now how to build up this structure, and we think that we are prepared to say today that we can talk about the possibility of creating such a communication between Russia and countries of the Islamic cooperation. I'm not talking about signing of any agreements or protocols, and I agree with my colleagues from the Ministry of Construction because they approved our session. Before we sign an agreement, we should have research, development and bilateral contacts. And if our conference, if this forum is called Russia Islamic World, why don't we use it for our matters? And why don't we talk about profitable cooperation between Russia and countries of Islamic cooperation? That is why I appeal to the countries participating in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, those who are interested in establishment of such a platform, please applied directly. And I want to show you a clip which aims to solve a very important issue: attraction of young people, development of employees. And probably these people are not professionals, professionals in this field, but we want to show them what demolition and dismantling and waste management mean. 450 participants, 35 plus. Well, just please switch off the video because it will be followed by entertainment. Switch it off, please. So this is the end of my presentation, and it is an introduction to our session and to our further dialogue. And I should like to welcome our next speaker, Maria Kovalenko, and she is Kovalenko Maria, head of the Department of Informatization in the field of waste management of the Department of State Policy and Regulation in the field of waste management of production and consumption of the Ministry of Natural Resources of the Russian Federation. And she is a great expert, and she will tell you what kind of work is being done in the Russian Federation. Thank you very much. Please give me a clicker. And please switch on my presentation. Today, I will briefly talk about federal law on the circular economy cycle, which is being developed by the Ministry of Ecology of the Russian Federation. But before we pass to the new regulation, I should like to remind you how the legislation and how the normative and regulative base started. In July 2020, a federal law number 260 was adopted, and which approved secondary waste, secondary resources, and secondary raw materials. Since 2020, we work in this according to this legislation, and I will not read this law again, but I want to focus to the on the delay norm. Secondary resources are subjected to utilization and their storage is not permitted. Well, this law will be enforced from the 1st of January 2030, and I think that these delayed norms are very good, very smart, and this improves cooperation with between state and business when we need a dialogue, so that business should understand what the state or the regulator wants, and it should be an open dialogue. And I want to focus to pay your attention. It's not me who should tell the business representatives that all investment projects, business projects, the midterm projects, they are, well, considered for 5 years, and we know what is our final goal in 2030. The next and one of the basic norms is the green procurement, state procurement. It was first introduced in 2022 with the list of goods and services which were included in this resolution. So far, it is quite a close resolution, and it includes 5 items, but it is solid surfaces, there are resin, and resin surfaces, soft roofs, hydro-isolation materials. So we've covered, and we included construction materials here. At any site, when we talk about circular economy, or we hear from business representatives that we need support measures, that this industry should be supported, especially in the transition period when it goes to the circular economy. And in August 2023, representatives of the Ministry of Trade of the Russian Federation, they worked on these special laws for the producers. If producers use secondary resources, this production will be supported by the state, and they can appeal for the support measures. It is again an economic initiative for transferring to the circular economy. And it is the 451 federal law which was adopted in August 2023, which was called resetting. But what I want to underline, that there are special sessions and seminars for the producers. This is a very basic law which covers the basic principles of the circular economy. But what I want to say today, that there are three different methods how this law can be fulfilled, and how this expanded responsibility of the producers can be fulfilled. And of course, again, the two priorities. It is the independent utilization of goods, and the second method, if you are not able to utilize these goods, then you find a utilizator. It is important that this utilizator is on the list in the register. Then you conclude an agreement, and then you start the utilization process. If you don't want to do it, then the third method is to pay the so-called ecology duty. It is called the green payment to the state. It is a very popular, and it is the most effective, because when these funds arrive to the federal budget, they can be used only for ecology reasons. So these duties, they are covered in green, and they are aimed at support of utilization, at procurement and purchase of containers. So if you want to bother with utilization, if you want the state to deal with this goal, then you have to pay an ecological duty. They have to be relevant, they have to be justified, and these payments, they should be quite high in order to develop the industry of utilization and to make this third method not very attractive from the economy point of view. If we talk about circular economy, but then our goal, what we are moving to, and it was underlined by Artyom in his presentation, that we have a popular agenda, and despite unprecedented sanctions and the attempt to isolate Russia from the world arena, this is not possible in the ecology matters and the circular economy. But we want to point out goals of sustainable development adopted by UN, and economy and matters related to demolition and waste management. They can be found not only in the goal of Goal 13, but the Goal 12 is the basic for circular economy. Unfortunately, at present, due to specifics of the legislation of nature safety, we have to work with its consequences. And talking about dismantling, I will give you an example about dismantling of buildings, and for example, there was a long period of exploitation. The building was built, it was exploited, and now the question arises about demolition and dismantling. Then we face waste, and we start thinking what needs to be done with this waste and how to bring this waste back to economy. And we think what needs to be done. At this stage of a waste establishment, but construction, materials for construction, the whole process of construction, exploitation, all these matters, they have not been regulated. Well, in some norms and acts, there are some references to the circular economy, to the saving of resources. And we've done an analysis in our ministry, and we found out that in more than 30 norms and regulatory acts, there are references to circular economy. But I always say that ecologists who work in different enterprises, they have to find one line or one sentence in many, many documents. And this is not rational, this is not justified. It takes a lot of time, and there is an idea to unite and to combine and to regulate all spheres starting from construction and to call it a law on circular economy. Russia is not a pioneer in this field, and I think we can talk about it openly and transparently. There are several examples from friendly countries. For example, Chinese People's Republic, already in 1995, they adopted a law on the transfer to circular economy, and all their indicators are, well, on slides. And at this moment, our president, Mr. Vladimir Putin, he pays a state visit to the Chinese People's Republic. This is the first official visit after inauguration, after re-election to the position of the president of the Russian Federation. And I read today in the news that between Russia and Chinese People's Republics, well, there was an agreement signed on the highest government level on further cooperation, on continuation of cooperation, even within ecology and ecological policy.
And of course, we are now talking about our allies, the Eurasian Union country, Belarus. We are now harmonizing the regulations in Russia and in Belarus. So in the Republic of Belarus now they are developing the regulations and legislation on the circular economy. Our colleagues in Belarus decided to excavate the minerals and raw materials through recycling and reuse, and we are now discussing a very important topic. This is also has to do with the Republic of Belarus. Of course, it is necessary to interact with the Republic of Belarus. Now, if we talk about other countries, for example, the Islamic world countries, the United Arab Emirates, they have a special development cycle for the regulations approved by the Cabinet of Ministers, and until a few years ahead they are developing 22 political measures for recycling and circular economy. And in general, if we talk about the analysis of the Russian experts, 26 countries of the world have the regulations on the circular economy. Don't be surprised why it is so, such a little figure. As a matter of fact, this a separate law on the circular economy. In other countries, they simply have different regulations and norms on the reuse and energy saving. Of course, these principles and regulations exist in much more countries. In any way, the economy of resources and the saving on resources are mentioned in different kinds. But it is in our country, among 26 countries, uh, there are laws on the circular economy. And I want to draw attention to the following. There are 50% of the global population live in these 26 countries. So 50% of the Earth's population live according to the norms and rules of the circular economy. It is clear that the Russian Federation, with a territory of 1/6 of the total land on Earth, it is very important that Russia has joined this number of countries with the national laws on the circular economies. Of course, I can't but agree with Artyom that it is very important to carry out the dialogue between the business and the government. And one of the important approaches is to establish uh, the this dialogue and this communication. And of course we include here not only business community but also the scientific community and the citizens in general. If we talk about this scientific community, we're talking about the technologies, and of course without R&D, without disruptive technologies introduction and new methods of demolition and decommissioning, it will be very difficult to move ahead. So we have to work very closely with the scientific community, academic community, if we want to go to the economy of the closed cycle. And next, if we look into the details of this, we are talking about the ESG factors. These are factors of corporate governance, ecological and environmental factors, and factors of social responsibility. And we should split it into the water, land and air resources. And if we talk about the air, these are decarbonization, the decree 66 of the President. This is the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. If we talk about water, we have the references in quite a big number of documents to and how we can reuse the water, at least for the technical purposes. And then if we talk about the solid waste, we have a task set in the decree of the President. As you know, just on the 7th of May 2024, Vladimir Putin signed a new decree on the prospects of the development until 2030 and for the prospects of 2036. The target tasks remained the same from the previous decree. This is the 100% processment and recycling of the solid waste. And now a new task is that 25% of the solid waste should be put back into the operations, and these are the state approaches to the closed cycle economy, circular economy. We have to think very closely on the secondary use and reuse and recycling of resources, and of course it is quite logically that there is a separate sectorial program for the communal industry and communal construction and municipal construction. And we have mentioned already a draft law, and we have mentioned already the federal law 89. This has to do with the decommissioning and recycle of the construction waste, and this will be very important. because here we have the main, on the slide we have the main ideas of this federal law on the introductions, on introducing the changes into the federal law on the production and consumption waste. So we work now on this parts of the federal law. You have my contacts on the slide, and you are welcome to ask questions, and I will try to answer this. Thank you very much, Maria. And I have a question from my side. In my view, we know that we have several tools of the achieving the sustainable development goals. One is the circular economy and the carbon neutrality. Now, in my view, the tools of carbon neutrality run certain risks of paralyzing the production and the economy. And we see that this approach actually is more aimed at the environmental aspect than on the efficiency. Because we are talking, we know that there are some drawbacks of the efforts to replace the traditional fossil fuels with the renewable sources. So when we talk about the circular economy, this should be a kind of symbiosis. When we don't introduce something at the loss of some other aspects. So we definitely can have quite a lot of positive effects from the circular economy. And this is the recycling, reuse, the new jobs, and we also have here the environmental positive effect. If we, for example, remove the dams, then we reduce the emissions. And what is your opinion? Is possible to achieve the economic benefits if really if we see that half of the population already live according to this environmental and circular economy principles, then it definitely should have the reasons for this. Well, I can say that the first part of your question is slightly provocative, because the situation in the Western Europe is quite different from the Russian Federation. We see overpopulation, we see the shortage of resources and the increased emission in the West European countries. We understand that there are some tensions in the relations with the Western countries now, between Russia and the West European countries. And we understand who suffers from this. And we believe that the West European countries are suffering now, and they are obliged, actually, they have to go to the recycling and reuse and circular economy. And in fact, the governments simply do not need to explain anything to the citizens. They understand that if they do not save the water, do not that they have in their taps, simply they are going to one day to not have enough water. In our country, the environmental education has different aspects, because we are one of the richest countries in the natural resources. And sometimes it is difficult to explain to people why we have to save resources. So when we talk to people and we try to explain that the carbon neutrality is achieved not through economic methods, I think in European countries, in this case, these are the problems of their own. We, first of all, have to talk about the benefits of our country. But at the same time, you pronounce a phrase that if they work on certain economic projects, this must be beneficially from the point of view of the economy. And in other words, if in Europe they work on some environmental projects, it means that it is profitable. On the other hand, another point is that in Europe, the environment is ahead of everything and nobody already cares about the money. But in the Russian Federation, you are right saying that we try to find a balance, and we as the regulator, we should observe this. We have to find the balance between environment and the economy. It is very difficult to get these two things together. This is just like a shield of the symbol of the Russian Federation. There is an eagle with two heads, so the economists look in one direction and the environmentalists look in another direction. But we have to find the balance, and we do have positive examples, and in this case we even can say that this balance is economically viable. So this balance between the businesses and the government is very important. Of course, the businesses will not agree to regulations that will cause additional losses, because a goal of any businessman is to get additional profit. But we as the regulator also are striving to saving the environment and avoiding the situation when the additional profit spoils the environment, harms the environment. So we're talking about the economy, and the word circular is about the environment, how to put it together. So the symbiosis, and the symbiosis is what we're driving at. Thank you, Maria. And we are the representatives of the society that works on the recycling. So we definitely see the usefulness of recycling and circular economy. Now I want to put on a video from the speaker that haven't managed to come to our session. This became known only a couple of days ago because the flight from Tajikistan was cancelled. This is Samat Musoev. He was supposed to talk about the Taboshar reclamation project of the nuclear power plant. Unfortunately, Samat Musoev hasn't managed to come, but he asked us to put on the video with the implementation of this project.
So realization in the city of Tikhlo in Tajikistan in 1945, 1965, due to processing of uranium ore, 16 million uranium ore in the territory of more than 16,000 hectares, and radiation achieved very high level. And according to the instruction by the president, the country developed a program, and on request of the customer, in 2021, there was a competition announced to implement this project to realize waste of these ores, and in the city of Istiklal, and the winner was community or organization enterprise, which was branch of Rosatom Russia, and then the subcontractor was FICE. The realization of this project was for 3 years until the end of 2023. The work started in 2022, and now practically all works have been completed ahead of timetable using special technical means, and in the height of the horizon was 65 meters and it dropped to 25, and the angles were like 15 degrees, and so the total space after recultivation was 14.5 hectares, and it was strengthened by stones and clay, and then they did some greenery and planted long-term plants. In total, the cost of, well, not the cost, but the total area of recultivation was more than 1 million cubes. Well, the total space was more than 75 hectares, and there was 180 million of uranium ore that was recultivated. At all parts, well, along the perimeter, they established a dam from the stone and some fences from wire, strengthened by concrete pillars. At all 4 tailing dumps, there were different wells, 11 surface wells for controlling the deformation, and there were more than 120 workers that work on this project, and more than 120 means of equipment. They were provided with food and safety measures. After completion of recultivation works in the tailing dump, the radiation reached the safe level, and now it is 1525 microRentgen per hour. Well, I hope that Samat Atkhonovich will show our presentation, our session, well, recorded. I should like to give him best regards and organize a business meeting with representatives of Republic of Tajikistan, with subcontractor FICE. They organize recultivation of Tabashan. And we'll go further. We've talked about this combination between the circular economy, what kind of waste we're talking about, why do we need to process them. We talked about regulators and what they are doing in the Russian Federation, and now we will talk about from the point of view of business, that they are dealing with demolition, with waste management. And before giving the floor to the next speaker, I want to say what we were talking about with Maria, who Because why I think that circular economy during the process of demolition and waste management, why it has their economic reflection. We've done some analytics, economic analytics. What is the impact of circular economy on the objects subjected to demolition as far as the waste is concerned? What do we mean by demolition? Demolition means demolition of a building, and then what we do and how we manage waste. The significant share in all the costs are transportation expenses, and if we can optimize these expenses, if we can reduce them, then the solution will lead to favorable and profitable economic solutions for everybody, for contractors and for customers, because most of the waste they present the concrete, and they can be effectively processed at the site of construction using some hanging equipment, some drilling equipment, and the analysis that we've done showed that at different stages in the different projects of NADA in Yekaterinburg, Krasnodar, Tomsk, St. Petersburg, Moscow, in all cases, processing of what we can process exactly at the construction site rather than transporting it from the construction site. It will reduce our budget from 2 to 8 times, and it provides us a significant amount of money. So in order to show how business deals with it, I should like to introduce you the next speaker, Denis Prokhorov. He is the chief executive of Armada Stroy Contract, deputy director. It is part of the Reformer company, and the CEO is the president of our association, and he will talk about the experience of this work in Kazakhstan and compare it. What is the difference between the demolition and waste management in Russia and Kazakhstan? The floor is yours, Denis. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I represent a group of construction companies, Reforma. It includes several companies, including Kazakhstan company Armada, and I'm their construction director on construction matters. Our company is dealing with professional demolition of industrial objects for more than 25 years. And what we've done, we made the demolition of more than 700 objects. We are an international company, and we work in different countries. We work in Russia, in Kazakhstan. These are the main countries for our presence. We also work in Uzbekistan, Turkey, and Belarus, and we are planning to deal with Egypt and South Africa. In Kazakhstan, the large-scale projects that we are working, it is the lead plant. Then it is Kamenogorsk, it is Pavlodar, and Almaty combined power plant. In all these objects, first of all, we selected mineral materials, bitumen, decoration materials, glass, and then we dismantled fences and all the surrounding constructions, and we distributed and we made the distinction between brick, and we drilled the brick until the substance that was required by the customer, and then the customer used it for their own needs for construction at all these objects, because all these objects suggested further construction, or they use them for recultivation of their tail dumping. Well, the similar situation relates to the Russian objects. With the difference that at some objects, the secondary stones, they will be realized somewhere, or these materials are used by polygons for their own recultivation. are objects with a great number of waste. Nornickel in Norilsk, Ufaля nickel in Verkhny Ulafey, Nizhny Tura water power plant, Ijevsk combined heat and power plant, Segizhda pulp and paper mill, Zagorska pump storage plant, and Kolska mining company. Then, talking about these objects, there will be photographs in the course of the presentation. Now I will try to briefly talk about our work with waste in Russia and in Kazakhstan, because we've already fulfilled a great number of objects, and I can tell you that the number of regulatory norms and acts comes from Russia. We had the same starting point, but then our ways went to different directions, and it was associated with the specifics of each country. And in addition, the legislation related to colleges started to be developed in a very dynamic manner. And we started to think about circular economy. In Russia, the main legislative act which deals with waste management is a federal law about waste and consumption waste. And in Kazakhstan, it is the ecological code. Control for waste is dealt with by Rosprirodnadzor in Russia, but in Russia, if you want to work with waste, you need to obtain a license. In Kazakhstan, this work, well, it's the state controls waste management, but the most strict work is in Russia, especially in Moscow. In both countries, for infringement of legislation and waste management, there are some administrative penalties or suspension of the enterprise. In Russia, it is the withdrawal of a license, and sometimes it is a criminal responsibility. In both countries, there was some dismantling works that have to be prescribed, and all the activities should be enlisted, as well as ecology matters, protection against negative influence. But the ferrous and non-ferrous scrap metal, they present the largest value. They are collected for secondary use, and the market of ferrous market is 25 times more than in Kazakhstan. And in Kazakhstan, there was export of ferrous and non-ferrous metal was prohibited from the country, and now the cost in Kazakhstan is lower than the cost in Russia. Second value and the volume is the crushed stone. We receive it from brick or from concrete, and in Russia there is a market of these materials. In some regions of Russia, secondary stone is quite well, it's a competitor for the natural stone. First of all, it is explained by expensiveness in some regions of Russia due to transportation costs, and to the long distances, due to expensive equipment which needs to be used for crushing the stones, and then the demand of the market. And as a result, in Russia, there are specialized contractors, who are professionally dealing with the construction waste, and it is quite an independent business in some regions of Russia. In Kazakhstan, the situation is different. They don't have a market for crushed stone, and these processes are quite rather episodic, and on the average, the cost of the natural stone is lower than in Russia. However, the cost of crushing the stone is much more expensive.
As to other waste like bitumen, glass, wood can be recycled and can be used secondarily. Although in Russia there are some companies that can recycle this, nevertheless, because of the big distances, it happens very rarely, and it practically never happens in Kazakhstan. And this type of materials, if they are found at a certain demolished building, they simply are placed at the tailings or the waste dumps. And these dumps exist in Russia and in Kazakhstan. One of the issues of recycling is the mixture of different materials, and it is not possible to separate them. If we talk about the glass and the other materials, the wood in the concrete waste, it makes impossible to reuse it and recycle it. The wood, which is among the concrete crushers, simply can even break the crusher for the concrete waste. So that means that an operator must minimize the mixture of different materials and to separate relatively clean raw material to get the secondary materials, recycled materials. This, along with the environmental issues, if we have the specialized equipment, then it allows the mechanized demolition with in safety and solving the crucial conditions of correct demolition. In Russia, the certain organizations do have the necessary experience, but there are no such organizations in Kazakhstan. If, for example, we are talking about the dedicated demolition type excavators, in Russia, there are excavators with the length of the arm with more than 50 meters. Also, I can add that because of the sanctions, quite a lot of, or practically all the manufacturers of the equipment left Russia, but now in Russia already the companies have begun the production of new equipment. As to Kazakhstan, there is no own manufacturing of the necessary equipment. In Russia, we're developing different very safe approaches to the necessary equipment. As an example, we have acquired the portable laser station with the cutting distance of up to 200 meters, and this laser can cut the surface of the depth of 500 millimeters. At present, the regulations in Russia are quite ahead of Kazakhstan from the point of view of the necessary norms and rules, and also there is a high presence of necessary organizations in Russia that can proceed with the demolition, but I'm sure that both in Russia and in Kazakhstan, the two countries are going to achieve great advances in the development of safe and environmentally friendly demolition methods and recycling. A question from my side: to what extent the lack of the necessary regulations in Kazakhstan affect the market of dismantling and decommissioning? Well, the dismantling and demolition market is affected by other things. The market is limited with what is available there, and the works themselves are limited, and at the same time the lack of the professional contractors also is negative for the market. On the other hand, the lack of the contractors is explained with the lack of the available works and the operations. Full-fledged company for demolition will not survive there. And now a question to Maria. The present regulations is aimed at this special equipment. In fact, in order to properly work with the demolition and the recycling, we need a certain equipment, additional equipment, and an institution or a company should definitely possess this equipment, and including the basic equipment and special outboard equipment or on-board equipment. So we have to really organize how to do it. We don't have the mobile equipment of this kind, and so we have quite a lot of issues and questions. Last year, the Designing Institute, Ural Institute, actually started a special project for the processing of the solid waste and demolition waste right at the construction site. We indeed were giving consultancy for the recycling of the solid construction waste. Do we go in the right direction? What we can say about these new approaches? What are the new what is the future of this research and development project? Indeed, Artem, you are right saying that the sequence of activities is now much better. We, as the regulator, when we hear from businesses some proposals and requests, and we understand that these proposals are correct and useful, in this case we go to the research and development institutions, we launch a research project, and then the results of these projects we use already in the transformation of the regulation base. The results of that project that you mentioned showed that it is quite useful and efficient to use the mobile equipment, mobile recycling equipment, or probably adjustable or add-on equipment. But at the same time, there were quite a lot of questions regarding this mobile equipment. Because, as we've just heard from another speaker, that in Kazakhstan it is not, it is definitely it is necessary to provide the licensing for these activities. We have sent the request to Rosprirодnadzor, the Russian Agency of Environmental Protection, and we are going to communicate on this more. And I would like also to propose that we have to solve these issues step by step. As it was written in my presentation, probably you will agree to that it is very important to change the Federal Law 89 and to understand better the obligations and powers, what we can leave at the municipal level and what we should put on the federal level. And we hope that with this we understand who should have the licensing power, whether this should be one institution on the federal level and other institutions and other types of institutions at the municipal and regional level. We but no doubt that the mobile equipment and add-on equipment will allow us to help the economy of these activities of demolition and solid waste recycling. Well, in the draft law, I saw that it is very important to give priority to the recycling against the dumping, and the accumulation of different types of accumulation. When we are talking about um, the demolition, this is when we have this waste sorting right on the spot. If we see the situation when a building is destroyed and then all the materials are put together and then it is delivered to the dump, and we can call this just garbage. It is not possible to recycle it, reuse it. It is very important to provide the waste sorting right on the spot, but this cannot be done by hand. Workers by hand cannot do it cannot move big stones, big parts of the building. This is not efficient and this is unsafe. So we have to have this mobile equipment. And if we write in the draft law the necessity about the necessity of the separate waste accumulation and waste sorting, it will be very difficult for us just if we do not mention this mobile equipment. Well, colleagues, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we had a limited number of speakers. Nevertheless, I believe that we spoke very efficiently and to the point about all the points. I believe that as to the CIS countries, among the CIS countries, Russia is the leader, first of all, in the development of new regulations and norms on the federal level for the circular economy. And we spoke about this, and also we listened to the implementation of different business tasks. We listened to the comparison between Russia and Kazakhstan. And if you have questions, you are welcome. Please give the microphone to the speaker from the audience. Sorry for maybe my question is not properly aimed, because I participate not from the very beginning. Maybe you had spoken already and answered my question at the very beginning of the session. But the last topic that you've discussed about the federal draft law and the necessity of separated accumulation of different types of waste. Or the secondary raw materials. When we talk about the industrial facilities, it is clear, but at the same time, if we talk about the municipal waste, because in the municipal area, the main objects for demolition are the residential housing and maybe some other buildings of communal use. And we understand that in the city locations, the territory is very limited. So to what extent the developers of the law see the opportunities for implementation of this law, if we are talking about the demolition of the municipal facilities? Indeed, you are right. We have two main areas of work. This is the industrial facilities and the city facilities. Indeed, in the city areas, in the municipal areas, it is very difficult to properly carry out the demolition, because we have limitations from the territory and from the noise level and from the garbage level, etc. I don't remember the exact wording in the law, but I remember that if there are no possibilities and the barriers and protection for the city dwellings, then it is not possible to do the recycling and the separated accumulation right on the point, on the demolition site. But it is clear that it is possible to do at the industrial demolition sites. At the same time, we have to compare the level of noise and level of dust when there is mobile recycling equipment works and when several excavators are demolishing the building. So, if we can do it right on the site, we do it. If we cannot, then we try to evacuate and deliver the waste to the dumps. So, we have to take into account that all these issues are mentioned in the new draft law, and I'm sure that there will not be the prospects of this kind. The regulator very attentively and thoroughly analyzes all the risks. Why? Because the regulator understands it. We've got the decree of the Moscow region government, and in this decree it is clearly said that the construction waste should be always delivered to the dumps. And the explanation is that we have to do the recycling right on the demolition site if we can. And even in the case of the municipal demolition, the city quite often says that the pebbles should be left on the site because it can serve for the road construction within the city area. I hope that I answered your question. Another question, please, esteemed speakers. My name is Denis Shehov. I'm the head of the group of companies from Rostov-na-Don. For about 2 years, we've been working on the new territories in Ukraine, and I'm very happy that I can discuss it now. First of all, the new territories of the Russian Federation are involved in the demolition activities as well. And as the regulator, please answer how we can work there. We are involved much deeper at these new Russian territories. The point is that quite a lot of periods are closely related to this. We are restoring the infrastructure, and quite a lot in quite a lot of cases we face the conflicts of the regulations aspects.
Well, talking about new territories, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think that Reforma is not working in the new territories, so I cannot give you a reply to this question. But we have, in this room, we have a member of the company Rosard, and they have the experience, and I think this participant can provide you a reply. Anton Tarasov, he is Director on Development of the group of companies Rosard. Well, we faced a big problem in the period of implementation because we needed to quickly prepare the territory and to build housing, hospitals. I'm talking about Mariupol. So we did not deal on any management. We collected waste and then we transported to a special place. So I cannot mention circular economy as far as this particular region is concerned. Well, I will try to neglect what you've said. So I should like to remind you about the format of my cooperation with representatives of the Ministry of Construction of both republics, and I talked to the head of the department who was responsible for this particular area, but it is not I think that this work is being done, and I want to ask you about the scale of this market. Should we consider this market as a civilized, and how can we solve these matters? Well, in January, we've completed works there, so I cannot comment on the current situation, but what was in January I've mentioned to you. And second question, Denis, about legislation in the new territories about construction within the circular economy cycle. As Artyom said, we provided some transition period to new territories so that they could move from the previous legislation to well, so Russian legislation, I don't want to say Russian legislation because historically these territories were ours and some of the documents were in Russian, so we provided them a transition period until 1st of January 2026. So these four territorial subjects, they are not participating in the legislation at the moment, but nevertheless, it does not mean that until 2026 they don't do anything as for the waste management. Territorial schemes, they do have them, and this is quite a book that should be on your table from the governor to any head of the department. If we are talking about waste management in the Russian region, then you open territorial scheme of the waste management from the place of where it is collected, where it is formed, and all the objects of utilization, storage, and management, they have to be mentioned on this scheme. And it involves new territories. So our Ministry of Construction helps new territories, in particular within this assistance. We've already sent them specialized equipment for solid and communal waste, and we buy containers and bunkers, and we buy them and sell them. Who does it? Who buys? Who buys? No, the state. The state buys them. And we send this equipment and these goods there. And I think there are some clips, and you may see that while a great number of transportation of trucks goes there and brings the equipment there. So in order to save money of these territories. So it's kind of a financial assistance. So we do help new territories, and we understand that in these territories there is a great number of different problems, solutions, and maybe I will tell you, I will quote the official of the Ministry of the Natural Resources, but we understand that, first of all, they need to build housing, hospitals, roads. This is the most important part of construction because people have to, they should go back to their territories, they should go to their houses, and there are, well, some facilities and objects have been completely ruined, and it would not be just to talk about ecology and put it on the first place. Let us create comfortable conditions. Let us return comfortable conditions to people. But of course, nobody will neglect ecology. But first of all, people have to go back to their normal life. And since April 22, first of all, the task was to provide infrastructure and to start the process. But I want to go in the future. I am not thinking about one building or about one street or about one district, but I want to understand what has to be done. I would exchange contacts with my colleagues, with those who do it professionally, in order to define the format of cooperation. Thank you very much. Of course, if you manage to, well, you could take a photo on the last slide of my contacts and let us continue this dialogue. So 1 hour and a half we worked in this format, and I'm very happy. In the conclusion, I should like to thank our Ministry of Construction. They suggested to organize this session within Forum Russia Islamic World, and I think that this topic will tackle the interests of regulator as well as of the business of the countries of Islamic cooperation. We are prepared towards joint cooperation in regulation, in regulating norms and technical regulations, and it is realization of joint business projects, as well as we are prepared for standardization. I should like to thank our speakers who took part today and our guests. Well, we didn't have many guests, but 90% of them were active, because sometimes half of the room does not raise any question, and here, well, we had lots of questions. So thank you very much. Have a good day, and good luck, and have a good health.